What if the one thing standing between a man's broken life and his greatest breakthrough was just a single hug? Stay till the end, because this is the kind of story that reminds us, sometimes, love doesn't cost a thing, but it changes everything. Story begins. It was the coldest winter the city had seen in over a decade. Wind howled through the alleys like a lost soul, and most people hurried past each other with their collars pulled high and eyes to the ground. On the corner of Fifth Avenue and Main Street, sat a man who had become invisible to the world. His name was David Carter, once a promising architect, a dreamer, a husband, a father. Now, just a homeless guy to most. Wrapped in a thin, torn blanket and clutching a rusted coffee cup for coins, David looked nothing like the man he once was. His beard was overgrown, his hands cracked from the cold. But what truly made him feel empty wasn't the lack of money, it was the absence of touch, of being seen, of belonging. Life hadn't always been like this. Just 5 years ago, David had a beautiful life, a small but cozy home, a wife named Lauren, and a daughter named Mia with eyes as bright as spring skies. But life can be cruelly unpredictable. A car accident claimed the lives of Lauren and Mia one rainy night. David, unable to cope, spiraled into depression. He lost his job. Friends turned distant. Bills piled up. Grief turned into addiction. And eventually, the streets became his only home. Most people passed him by. Some threw a coin, many avoided eye contact, and others just muttered, "Get a job." No one ever asked his name. No one ever looked into his eyes. Until Sophie. She was just 7 years old. Holding her mother's hand tightly, wearing a red winter coat and matching mittens, Sophie spotted David while they waited for the pedestrian signal to turn green. Her mother pulled her forward, but Sophie stopped. She tugged her mom's hand and whispered, "Mommy, he looks sad. Can I give him my sandwich?" Her mother hesitated but nodded. Sophie walked up to David slowly and handed him her wrapped peanut butter and jelly sandwich. "This is my favorite," she said softly. "I want you to have it." David blinked in disbelief. He hadn't eaten since the previous morning. He reached out with trembling hands and took the sandwich. "Thank you," he whispered. But Sophie didn't walk away. Instead, she did something David hadn't felt in years. She hugged him. Not a polite pat on the shoulder. No hesitation. Just a full, pure, warm hug. A child's hug, full of innocence, love, and something even more powerful, recognition. She saw him. As a person. David felt something inside him break, and heal, at the same time. He didn't even realize he was crying until tears dropped onto Sophie's red coat. Her mom gently came over and said, "Come on, sweetheart." And as they walked away, Sophie turned back and waved. David sat there, still holding the sandwich, unable to move. That night, he didn't touch a drop of alcohol. That night, he slept under the stars and remembered he was human. The next day, David got up early and walked several blocks to a local shelter. For the first time in months, he signed up for a job counseling session. It wasn't easy, his resume was outdated, his ID was expired, and his confidence was shattered. But the memory of that hug stayed with him, like a spark lighting his soul. A volunteer named Mrs. Jenkins at the shelter noticed his effort. She saw something in him, a mind once sharp and talented, buried beneath the weight of tragedy. She helped him get clean clothes, renew his documents, and slowly re-enter the world. Over the next 6 months, David worked odd jobs, construction sites, warehouse night shifts, dishwashing at a local cafe. It was grueling. But every time he felt like giving up, he remembered Sophie's hug, how, in the lowest moment of his life, someone had still seen the good in him. 1 year later, David got a full-time job as a junior draftsman at a small architectural firm. He was quiet, focused, and often stayed late. His colleagues didn't know much about his past. But his boss, Mr. Rayburn, noticed his passion. "You've got something most people here don't," he said once. "Real hunger." David smiled. "I guess I've been empty too long." He saved every penny. He stopped drinking. He started drawing again, not for clients, but for himself. He drew parks, libraries, schools, places that felt safe. 2 years later, David's design for a community shelter won a local competition. The city noticed. News outlets picked it up. "Once homeless, now building hope," the headline read. The reunion. One day, during a fundraiser gala for the new shelter, David stood on stage to share his story. He talked about grief, failure, and redemption. But when he got to the part about the little girl in the red coat, he paused. "She gave me more than a sandwich," he said. "She gave me something no one else could, hope." In the crowd, a woman stood still. Her hand slowly raised. "My daughter gave a sandwich to a man on the street 3 years ago," she said in disbelief. Red coat, winter afternoon. David's eyes widened. The woman smiled and turned to the side. "Sophie, honey, do you remember this man?" From behind her, now taller and with a curious look on her face, Sophie stepped forward. She looked into David's eyes. And then, without a word, she hugged him. The same hug. Tears fell freely. Cameras clicked. The room was silent except for the sound of healing. Epilogue. Today, David runs an organization called Second Touch, a non-profit that builds affordable housing and provides mental health support to the homeless. And every year on the anniversary of that first hug, Sophie joins him to serve food at the shelter they helped build together. Because in a world where people walk past each other, where we forget that every face has a story. One hug reminded a broken man that he still mattered. And that was all it took, to change everything. End note for video. Kindness doesn't need money. Just heart. So, next time you see someone who's fallen, don't just walk by. You might be the hug that saves a life.